All right, everybody, big show today. We spent all yesterday talking about crypto. We're not done. We got our two favorite crypto fellas back for a crypto roundtable. Vinny Lingham and Sunny Madra joined to talk about the ETH merge, Martin Shkreli's new crypto project, how anybody can be rehabilitated as long as you don't have to trust them in the crypto universe, Gary Gensler's comments about compliance and regulation on exchanges, and more. It's a great show. Tons of lessons and super interesting information, and even some projects out there with some actual value. That's a thing we keep asking for. It's going to be a great show. Stick with us.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by Revello. Looking to affordably scale your product development with global tech talent in US time zones? Hire vetted remote developers in Latin America with Revello. Get 20% off for the first 3 months at revello.com/twist. The Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub helps all founders build a better startup at a lower cost from day one. Open to anyone with an idea, you'll get up to $150,000 in Azure credits, technical advisory, access to mentors and experts, free dev tools, and so much more. There is no funding requirement and it only takes minutes to join. Sign up today at aka.ms/thisweekinstartups. And user testing. With user testing, you'll understand it from your customer's perspective by seeing how they interact with your products, apps, or messaging. Get real-time feedback real fast. Put yourself in your customer's shoes. Visit usertesting.com/twist for a free trial. User testing, real human insight.
All right, everybody, it's time for our crypto round table. This is the second time we're doing it. Last time Molly was on vacation, but she's back, so she'll be here for this great round table with Sandeep Madra. You can call him Sunny. He is the co-founder of Definitive Intelligence, which lets users view on and off-chain data to understand their Web3 user base. And of course, Vinny Lingham, co-founder of Civic, the original partner and investor in Solana, and his startup encrypts identity information on the blockchain. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Thanks, Jason. Molly,
thanks for having us again. Yeah, good to be on with Molly this time.
Yes.
I know, I'm stoked. Welcome.
Molly, you told me that Vinny handed you the bag on Solana. He liquidated his Solana to you. You bought $300 worth of Solana and lost $250.
What happened is I drank a little too much of Chamath wine and then listened to Vinny for an hour and then went and spent $300 on Solana. So,
How'd that work out for you? How'd that work out for you?
I'm sure it's going to be fine. I'm a holder.
It could be worse. You could have bought Bed Bath & Beyond.
Could have been worse. Hey, there you go.
But there we have it, folks.
There you go. Also, I'm obviously quite impressionable, so thank God we didn't talk about Bed Bath & Beyond. Anything could have happened.
All right, well, speaking of scams and bag holding, Farmer Bro Martin Shkreli is out of jail, if you weren't following. You remember him. He was the most hated man on the internet for, I don't know, 3 months or something. He has a new Web3 project to create drug discovery software. It's called druglike.com. Seemed like a reasonable idea. I wanted to get everybody's perspective on if this is crazy or not. It's a computational chemistry software startup, and what he wants to do is take this very expensive software and the resources it takes, you know, GPUs, I think, and make it much cheaper for people to use. Here's 77 seconds of Shkreli on the Milk Road show from July talking about this new project, and I'll get your feedback after.
If you're going to make great software, that's sort of independent of like what modality you use. So for me, DrugLike's main goal is to make great computational chemistry software. If we can help solve the compute problem, great. You know, if we can't, it's still great computational chemistry software. Right. Like right now, there is no web-based comp chem software. So if you want computational chemistry, you have to call the company that makes it. You have to sign a license agreement. It has to get installed in your C drive. You are not getting any web access to anything. And you have to get trained, right? You have to this whole like craziness. And it's not particularly user-friendly either. So we made software that we wish we could use as chemists and as drug developers when we were at those companies. So we're able to sort of get something that you can just up and get running. I mean, could you imagine if you needed a license agreement to get on Google? You know, it would be a disaster. And that's sort of the problem with comp chem, is that you're shutting off 80 or 90% of users that could use your software, maybe more. On the flip side, you know, you are gating it to a Pfizer and a Merck that will sign enterprise license agreements of millions of dollars. So I think there's sort of that sales model and there's our sales model. obviously, to some extent, I have no problem with sort of just this becoming an open source software that's free to use and provide your own compute. I do think that compute challenge is something that we hope we can help on. We think there's some other sort of tools we could do, like democratizing the reward as well. You may want to get a whole bunch of expensive compute for free. Well, why not give up a piece of your, IP, for example, in return for that compute? So maybe I'm willing to provide my compute, but you got to give me half of the intellectual property. If you inevitably file a patent, maybe I can get half of that and I'll give you compute, and that's a fair shake. So maybe no money has to change hands.
What's your take on this concept, Sunny?
AlphaFold, right, is something you guys spoke about in the All-In Pod, and it's kind of what it's done for society. And I kind of viewed this as a decentralized AlphaFold. So I thought the idea was actually quite strong, and it's probably getting mixed up in Martin's background and everything that's happened there. But I thought the idea is quite powerful. And maybe I'll throw to Vinny because he's been a big fan of these decentralized compute resource plays that leverage the blockchain and crypto economies to do it. And so I thought it was a really good idea, make it available to everyone and decentralize the compute for it. Vinny?
So, I mean, I think we all know his reputation. and I would say...
Can you or should you separate the reputation from the content here?
So if it wasn't a pre-mine, in other words, the network went live and anyone could add compute resources to the network and mine for the coins directly, and Martin Shkreli and his cohort of whatevers, I want to use too abusive a name to it, but those people actually, participated in the network on a pari passu basis with everyone else. So in other words, I could go and rent GPUs, I could add it into the network, I could mine coins, and it was a fair launch really of the network. I think it's brilliant. I think this is the sort of stuff I like. I mean, it's the pre-mine stuff can work with people with at least decent reputations, and if you look at some of the big projects we've had, Filecoin, Solana, Render, etc. These are guys who haven't been in jail. They're like, you can trust the intentions there, right? The moment it's a pre-mine, to me, it'd be like, wait, this could be a pump and dump, and we're all going to get rugged, and that would be my concern. So given the background of the team, and I'm talking about sort of the morality of it, not the intelligence of it, because they're obviously very smart guys. They know what they're doing. From a morality perspective, I would like to see them launch this thing and say, look, we're going to compete with everyone else. Here's the spec. The network goes live on this date. Anyone can use it. It's compute intensive. It needs GPUs. You can go and buy old Ethereum GPUs. You can plug them in. You can rent power from Render, whatever the case is, and you can mine on a pari passu basis everyone else, and we're just going to help maintain this network and build a token around it. That's the token version of it. On a non-token version basis, I don't know how they scale this, because how do you get the distributed compute in the platform? So it's probably a compute play, but this cannot be a venture capital VC funded thing where they go raise money from Andreessen or whoever else.
And they get to, what you're talking about here is everybody's starting at the same start line, right?
Yeah.
Like the VCs don't get to buy the coins at some fraction of a penny.
Exactly.
They they drop them all at the same time in terms of fairness.
Exactly. So you publish the white paper, the roadmap, and you tell everyone this is the spec. Everyone gets the same starting point. And if Andreessen wants to go fund them to go mine coins faster than me or Jason or Sunny, good for them. But that's fair because it's all about now. Like there's no pre-mine. There's no we're holding this back.
But
that's
also
a regulation. Go ahead, Molly.
Convicted felon. Like it can't be good. It can't be good for the industry when this is the guy who's like, "Ooh, yeah, I want to get in here."
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that notion that I think that the sort of veracity of the idea should stand on its own 2 feet, like separate from what he's done in the past. Like if Martin came up with like, hey, this is how you do fusion or something, or like he solves a very tough problem in the world, and just because he's a convicted felon doesn't invalidate his idea, right? So like your past shouldn't invalidate science. Like these are two separate things. You can have a really bad guy. Like if I told you today Satoshi is a criminal behind bars, that doesn't invalidate Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting question. Like it's clearly not, to your point, a bad idea even, but it's pretty hard to consistently separate the artist from the art in a case like this. Like especially where you're talking about a project that is built on some level of trust fundamentally.
But that's the whole point. It needs to be trustless. That's my argument. It needs to be, this is an open spec. if Big Pharma wants to use it, if there's demand for the compute power, if I'm adding compute power and getting tokens from it, my actions are independent of everyone else's. It's a coordination sort of rally point for everyone. There's no pre-mine. Me adding compute power to the network doesn't pump up Martin's bags of coins that he pre-mined before it went live. For me, that is the critical point.
Okay, interesting, yeah.
It's interesting, Molly, when you think about it, because people do not want to put their reputation on the line with somebody like that, right? So like they've basically been excluded from venture capital or funding because of the past, right? I mean, it would take pretty strong conviction to give somebody right out of jail money. In a way, it's like crypto becomes this, back to permissionless, like, okay, my reputation doesn't matter. All that matters is people buy into my idea for better or worse. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is interesting that if you have a bad reputation, crypto becomes a platform where nobody can stop you from engaging in it.
Well, I guess to follow up on your point just now, Vinny, like what is the chicken and egg part of that? Because I see what you're saying. It makes perfect sense that as it grows, it is trustless. So you don't have to worry that much about the origin story, if you will. But you do have to have buy-in in order to create this thing from the get-go, right?
Well, the buy-in is purely capitalistic view, right? If I'm a big pharma company and there's this way of like reducing the cost of new drug discovery and research, and I can produce it 90% cheaper than I can today using this network, and the network is very fair in terms of distribution of tokens or compute power or whatever. If I don't use it and Sonny goes and starts up a biotech company and he comes and does drug discovery at 1/10 the cost, he's going to kick my butt. And then for like, you basically, it's an economic discussion. Like this is the whole point of like removing the people from the science, right? But this is why for me, it's very, very important that it's not a pre-mine where he owns some part of the network up off the bat. This needs to be, if he really believes in the idea, if he really believes in what he's building and like the good for humanity, nobody should have an advantage over this. It should be open seasons for everyone. And if he winds up being the smallest stakeholder in the network after a year, that's his problem. But it shouldn't be where, it's a pump and dump. So for me, it's all about the science. Like if the science is good, it shouldn't matter who discovers. If someone discovers the cure for cancer and they're a convicted felon, mass murderer, whatever, it shouldn't invalidate the cure for cancer. You should still use the cure.
To be clear, I'm not even trying to say that as like a morality or value judgment specifically, although punchable face for sure. What I primarily mean is, given the opportunity to do business with Shkreli, I would 100% believe that there is a way that he is finding a way to screw me.
Well, this is my point. If it's an open permissionless network, you're not doing business with Shkreli.
But you're saying do we know that it is? Like we know it's pre-mine, like we
it's
know
under construction.
Things.
Yeah.
It's under construction. I'm just telling you how I would do it.
So you're saying this is the universe in which you would feel okay about it.
Yes.
It's almost, we don't know what the actual,
open source code, open source everything, open spec, like anyone looking in can say this is and you know what? There are watchdogs out there. Okay. The guys, like really smart comp sci guys, are going to look at this and say, hang on, there's a catch. This is the catch. And that'll be exposed. And then no one will want to participate in the network.
It would be as if like WordPress was the WordPress open source project was the person who created it, instead of being Matt Mullenweg, who's the nicest guy on the planet. What if it was like a serial killer? So like literally, I'm just doing an extreme case here. The serial killer creates the best publishing platform for the web, but it's completely open source. And then people can use it and they have no control over it. But then you have to live with the fact that a serial killer made it. It's really like a great mind
but
I don't even
test.
It only matters if he benefits directly from it in a disproportionate way.
That's all I'm saying too. Is like I don't have to like him, but Vinny is doing a great job of laying out the conditions under which you would be like, he can't screw me here. And so this could be a good thing, all in.
Exactly. If this was a company, I wouldn't touch it. If this was like Martin Shkreli's new company, they're raising a seed round at a $500,000 pre-money valuation. It's free equity, like,
and he wouldn't be able to, I don't think. That's the interesting part about it, isn't it, Sonny? Is that like crypto and open source and the nature of this under the conditions that Vinny puts out would make it like possible for him to do that. If you're looking for highly qualified, elite international developers, but you don't want to deal with the crazy time differences. I feel you. That's why I use developers who are in my time zone. And that's why you need to know about Revello. Revello is your answer. It's a talent platform, and it matches you with vetted full-time remote developers in Latin America, which is where I have my developers. They work on US time zones. So you're talking to them for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and you can collaborate in real time, not play telephone. And you're going to spend less compared to hiring in the US. And I will tell you that the developers in Latin America are as good as the developers in America. You're going to get matched with your candidates in 3 days or less. They're going to handle the payroll, the taxes, the benefits, and more. You get to hire internationally without all the headaches. Revello engineers are full-time and embedded in your team just like normal employees, okay? And they're proficient AWS, Rust, Ruby, React, Python, Node.js, all of the great technical platforms out there. They do. Here's your call to action. Go to revello.com/twist and mention twist to get 20% off your first 3 months. Very significant when you think about it. REVELO.com/twist. They offer 100% risk-free 14-day trial period. If you're not satisfied, you pay nothing. REVELO.com/twist. Have any of the other projects that do distributed compute hit any kind of scale? I remember there was the rendering one. I forgot the name of it. I know there's RenderCoin.
It's called Render. It's called Render.
Render.
It's called Render. Wasn't there another name though for another one that was doing like animation projects?
That was Render still. Like another one.
Render.
Yeah, there's another one that has scale on the supply side is Helium. And so what they have like a network of 4G and 5G hotspots, and that's been an interesting one. They have, I think, anyway, 900,000 plus hotspots around the world now. So that's one that's really kind of taken off in a similar
Filecoin,
capacity.
of course. So there's
Filecoin is a classic.
There's three
one.
of these. Have those three hit any kind of user adoption?
So Filecoin's got scale, which I think people don't appreciate how much scale Filecoin has per day. It's pretty big. Now, users are not using the stuff. Remember, this is a very low-level protocol, so the people using Filecoin are not, it's not the end user. It's the services that are built on top of it. So you got things like Estuary.tech and other services that build on top of Filecoin. Filecoin is the base layer infrastructure. Right now, Filecoin is storing, I need to double-check the latest numbers. It's got like 17 exabytes of storage capacity on the network, and that's like 200 times Netflix's archive, or 300 times. It's a huge amount of storage that Filecoin's got. And they're storing, there's 4,000 miners. I can look up the stats, but it's pretty big. And
but usage maybe not there yet. So
usage is there. No, usage is there. So if you look at Arweave stores about 70, I think it is 70 gigabytes a day. And I think Filecoin stores like a terabyte a day. So it's like 17 hours a day.
There's these like two interesting curves that come together on these, JCal, which is one is when they're early and like how much distribution do they have and how much can you trust, like how much storage do they have? And then as they continue to grow, the centralized services initially have a lot of advantages because of their centralization. It's only when these things reach a certain scale that their price gets cheaper. So I think right now, Filecoin's not cheaper than S3 or Glacier. Probably Glacier's a better example. Right. And
no, Glacier is cheaper. It's cheaper than Glacier. It is cheaper than Glacier.
Is it cheaper than Glacier? Okay.
Yeah.
But and so there's a point at which those things kind of cross over. And then, the other thing that factors into this sometimes is we touched on it a little bit before, is when the token that represents its utility gets mixed into the speculation. And so that becomes problematic because where, something is meant to power the economy just to drive the scaling of it, people start speculating on it. I think that breaks these things sometimes as well. And so that's two curves that you really have to watch with these utility token based services that are popping up all over the place.
Yeah. Can the distributed one beat the centralized one in terms of cost and ease of use and all of those things that consumers would care about? You sent this link, the Starboard link. Yeah. So Vinny, here you explain to us what we're seeing here.
So this is a dashboard for Filecoin and how many deals we're getting per day in the network. So in the past 24 hours, 1.4 petabytes of data was stored on the network. That's 1,400 terabytes every day. Look at the daily deal statistics. Like this is not cumulative. This is per day. Every day, look at these numbers going up.
So what is a deal in this context?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you said that. I'm like, what is a deal?
A deal is basically a vendor asking a storage provider to store an amount of data.
Got it. So if I wanted to store the archives of This Week in Startups, 1,500 episodes, I could do that on Filecoin and pay some amount.
Yeah.
And that would be a deal. And then I would pay in cryptocurrency or Filecoins to do that?
You pay in Filecoin. So there's about...
Every month would I pay it, or do I pay it one time?
No, you pay for the period of time. Let's say you want to store it for 18 months. You have a contract for 18 months, and then they have to provide proofs that they're storing the data constantly. And then you can choose how many copies of it you want on the network. So if a provider goes down, it's still there.
Can I make it public available to anybody?
Oh, yeah. You can have public data.
So Joe Rogan could put his whole archive up on Filecoin, make it publicly available for anybody to download?
Wikipedia runs on Filecoin. So
what?
Yeah. When Turkey wound up banning Wikipedia, they moved it across to IPFS, which is built by Protocol Labs, and I think it's running on Filecoin now as well. But it's basically censorship resistant. You can access Filecoin anywhere in the world. You can't shut down the server for.
Oh wow! For so maybe Wikipedia that we all go to is stored wherever they store it on regular servers.
Exactly.
But there's a backup copy mirrored on Filecoin.
Think of it as a persistent cache everywhere that you can access. But I mean, see, if anyone, like viewers want to go check out dashboard.starboard ventures, like this is one of these crypto projects that very clearly, I mean, like 16 exabytes of storage capacity on this network is mind-boggling. I mean, Netflix, I think, has got not even an exabyte. I think, Sunny, what do you think Netflix is sitting on?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think close to probably one.
Maybe one.
Yeah, it's tough to compare because it is providing storage for everyone. But probably better comparison is like S3 or Glacier or something.
Is there a point in time where a Netflix could conceivably use this?
They could use it right now.
Well, technically they can, but could they practically, with the number of users they have, would the network support it, you think?
Yeah, eventually. That's the whole point, right? Distributed storage at scale. There's a retrieval market that's coming soon. The idea is that you can, look, the cost of moving data from one place to another is pretty high, right? So if you have localized storage in if you want to store local videos for South Africa with a South African provider, that's a lot more efficient than storing it with a CDN in UK and then streaming it across to the local provider. And you can actually get it very granular. You can get it down to someone in Johannesburg storing the data, and then you pay them for streaming or whatever it is, delivering it. It's going to get there. We're not there yet. We're probably 3 years away from that sort of thing, or 5 years away.
All right.
But
this is super impressive.
When you say it's censorship resistant and censorship proof, it's because it's distributed compute. It's like the SETI of storage.
Yes.
Bang on.
Yes,
Exactly.
Yeah. And there are 4,000 providers worldwide currently. In the next, and if the price of Filecoin rises, so let's go, it's like $6 right now. Let's say it goes back up to $100 or $50. That 4,000 is going to go up to 7,000, 10,000, more providers worldwide, because there's more revenue in the network, there's more value in the coin. And so to mine those coins, the same way you mine Bitcoin, more providers will come on the network. So the issue that Filecoin has right now is it actually has, I'd say, too much storage right now, 16 exabytes. But if you look at how much storage the world needs over the next 10 years, that's nothing. So there's going to be this point in time where there's a flip over. We don't know when it is. It could be 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, where Filecoin becomes the most valuable decentralized global storage platform. And the key thing about, like, the way I look at Filecoin in a very simplistic way is Filecoin is the Amazon storage infrastructure, the software for that, but everyone runs their own hardware. So right now, Amazon has a centralized data center, and they've built all the software from a very low level to abstracted all the way to the front end for developers to store data. But Amazon owns the stack. They own the hardware and they own the software. Filecoin is basically, here's the software, and you can go plug in your own data and create your own data centers, pay for your own electricity, your storage, your security, and people can store wherever you are, and we'll give you software to run it. So it's kind of like it's like hotels and hotel software. That's
well, and the way I kind of think about these things, is like building off like Jeevan's paradox, right? If you're familiar with that, it's like the more of it's something you make available, more people will consume it. So think of, Airbnb and hotels, like one didn't wipe out the other one. There just became more use of people wanting to do like use of that utility. And I think we're seeing another great one, as we're talking about things, is Hive Mapper. I don't know if you're following that one.
No.
And they're basically building maybe Nick can pull it up. It's like a decentralized Google Maps with the street views that everyone can use. So it's not owned by one company. Everyone can contribute to it. And so it's really, really, that's another one that's kind of out there that you can imagine if you're building anything that's location-based or something like that. You don't want to be at the mercy of Google as the only person you can get this data from. It's super powerful.
So with Hive Mapper, you put a camera on your dashboard and you drive around and then you contribute to it and get paid a token?
Yep, is what's called Honey. That's their token.
Huh.
Yeah. And basically you contribute to this decentralized Google Street View, which, it's an awesome thing. It's like everyone owns it and everyone can use it.
But they're making the hardware. So they're the actual hardware, you have to buy it to then contribute to it.
So
you'd have to buy a server,
so
but
pretty good price, yeah.
Hopefully it does pay off for you to do that. That's actually a brilliant idea as well.
Yeah,
but
that's
this is
Helium did the same thing, and that's it's kind of the Helium model.
Yep.
The thing about the Helium, though, I saw a tweet that went viral. This is from this guy, Liron Shapira. Yes. So this guy, Liron Shapira, is a bit of a, I don't want to say troll, but he's pretty critical all the time. He was ripping a bunch of clips from the different pods, and I had to tell him, like, hey, pump the brakes. You can't take the show every week. And then, so I stopped him from doing that. But he says here, Helium, often cited as one of the best examples of a Web3 use case, has received $365 million in investment led by A16Z. Regular folks have been convinced to spend $250 million buying hotspot nodes in the hopes of earning passive income. The result, Helium's total revenue is $6.5K a month. I don't know if that's true or not. What do you think of that critique?
We can double check it, but I think one of the things that's happened here is, this is one where the supply and demand curve didn't match, and the utility of a wireless network is tougher than something, say, like a Filecoin, because let's say you're a company, whether you're a scooter company or an automotive company that says, hey, you know what, I want a lower cost alternative. I need some constant connectivity. I don't want to be sort of tied to the big networks. That's a great concept that you'll get this distributed network to do it, but you can't really make that switch over if you don't have 100% coverage. So this adds like an extra dimension to like a SETI at home or a Filecoin, where you have the dimension of location. So in order for this to work, they need like a really highly distributed network. And you can imagine where these nodes pop up. They pop up in a very kind of clustered way where, you could see, huge clusters in the East Coast and the West Coast and not coverage anywhere else. And then that makes it much harder for, say, a company to jump on this network and start consuming it with that sort of odd distribution. And that's something that these projects sort of have to balance out. And the other thing, which we were just mentioning earlier, when the utility token becomes a speculating token, then a lot of times, and in this case, people were buying the hardware to mine the token. So you end up with lots and lots of supply because people are speculating on the token, and you don't have the appropriate demand coming in on the other side.
If you're running a startup, you know that every little bit of help counts. Between running your team, building the product, getting compliant, hiring people, studying, customer support, everything. It's overwhelming. I know that. I work with y'all every day. But the Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub is here to help you. They're going to help you build a better startup from day one, whether you're plugged into Silicon Valley or not. The Microsoft for Startup Founders Hub is a digital platform created by founders for founders, and they give you amazing benefits. The first one, right off the bat, unbelievable. Up to $150,000 in Azure credits, and then one-to-one technical advisory on scalability, best practices, security, your tech stack, all that stuff. And you get access to a huge mentor network, plus free dev tools like GitHub Enterprise, access to partners like OpenAI, Bubble, and others, free Microsoft software, including Outlook and Teams, and much, much more. The program is open to everyone. There's no fundraising requirements. You don't need to know somebody. They want to support all founders. It takes just 5 minutes to apply, and startups get all these massive benefits immediately. So learn more and sign up for Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub today. You're going to write this down right now. Stop what you're doing, get a pen, get a paper, aka.ms/thisweekinstartups. That's simple. aka.ms/thisweekinstartups.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and we'll talk a little bit more about the SEC in a minute. But this idea that once you start to financialize a product before it actually has value, you've sort of inverted the process, right? It should have built value, and then maybe you build some financial instruments on top of it to make it more valuable, but it's this kind of inversion that seems to be, muddying the waters, I guess is the best way to put it about the industry for people right now.
The issue that crypto struggles with is that everything is subscale in terms of market depth and liquidity. So when you have like any of these projects that come out there and everyone sort of piles in to start mining or adding coins, the moment you get to a point where there's just no bids, like people just dump the stuff. And so there's this interesting view I've got on crypto, which I think it's definitely developed over time. I mean, Bitcoin has the deepest liquidity pool by far. And then second is Ethereum. And then over time, you're going to see more pop up with deep liquidity pools. The real issue is the rate of inflation at the beginning and then how it declines over time. And there's a lot of players. Actually, the best way to make money, quite frankly, is to arb the intermediate step. Okay. And so that intermediate step is what we saw in Bitcoin in the first 8 years, where there's this, before the halvings came along, every time there was a huge spike in Bitcoin, people just dumped it and they dumped it down and they made their profits. They shorted the market. But eventually the inflation like tapered out at like whatever 4% right now, and you just can't do that anymore. It doesn't work. Bitcoin, it's down from 60K down to 20. It's not down to 3. It's got a new high, a higher high every single time, or rather
and you're saying the liquidity in plain English means a lot of participants. When you get a lot of participants, the volatility comes out.
Yeah. So things like, let's talk about Filecoin for a second. Filecoin pumped like to $230 at one point because it was a low liquidity and everyone started mining the coins. You had, exabytes of data storage coming in the network. Miners are borrowing coins to stake and whatever else. And they went through the cycle and then they mined these coins out. The Filecoin inflation on day one, so it was 15 million coins were released by the time the network went from testnet to mainnet. There you go. And so there was this huge pump, but go and look at the market cap. So that's price. Now look at market cap. So the market cap went up to 10 billion and then it started going all the way back down to where it is right now. So that's 1.7 billion market cap. Now go and check where the price right now is at 630. Okay.
Yeah.
And look at what it was at the previous market cap at the start of the year. So at $6 last time.
You're saying when was it last $6?
Not even there, but like a little further back. Because only when it listed, it was like $20. So
got it.
So the market cap has changed dramatically because the inflation has gone from 15 million coins to like 300 million in the past 2 years. So what you see, it's hard to overlay. You have to probably have two screens to show it. But the point I'm trying to make really is the liquidity of Filecoin has actually increased dramatically. We've gone from 15 million coins to like nearly 300 million coins in the float. The market cap is sitting at 1.8 billion. It was a lot higher, but now the inflation has gone so the inflation from 15 to 300 million is like 20x. It's the same when Bitcoin had its first million coins. We're now on coin number 19 million or something in Bitcoin. It's had 19 times expansion. Filecoin's just gone through that same phase in 2 years. And now Filecoin's inflation is like 20% a year and dropping dramatically because it's just the law. It's the law of large numbers combined with the actual caps of crypto coins. So you have this like this evening out, and now you can't really dump it as easily because you can't mine it as fast. And so the people who are holding it long term, I think, have much better returns. But the problem that all these crypto projects have is you have this gap, and sometimes it's 3 years, sometimes it's 8 years between where it initially starts and so call it like some sort of terminal inflation or terminal inflection point where inflation drops to a reasonable level, like 20%, 10% a year, or whatever it is. And so there's a lot of arbitrages out there, guys who are mining in China or wherever, where they don't care about the project. Most of the miners don't care about whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or Filecoin. They just want to so the way the arbitrage works is this: the coin pumps up to like $60. They short it, they borrow, they pay some interest rate, 20%, they short the coin, they buy the hardware, they mine it, and they got locked in guaranteed profits because they know the mining costs are a fraction of what they shorted it at. So that's why crypto, by and large, looks like a pump and dump across the board for most projects. And most projects, there are a pump and dump. But for the really good projects, once the liquidity pools deepen, it's exactly like that's not the case.
So you're saying I should J-trade Filecoin right now?
Well, I mean, Filecoin's one, Solana's another one.
He's got the glasses ready. He's ready to go. He will make a trade.
What's your take on that, Sunny? This rings true to what Vinny's saying is that as the the percentage of new coins generated every year starts to fall down to 10% of the total float, the total number available. You start to get the stability and you have a deeper liquidity pool.
Yes, you do. But I'll just go back to what Molly said. I think if the things are financialized before there's like product market fit, all of that will just kind of fuel speculation rather than actual utility. And I just think back to, startups for the longest time. We in the financial markets gave them the flexibility to not worry about, financial returns, profits or anything like that, as long as they were searching for product market fit and growing. I think here, when that gets inversed and people are starting to trade on it, all of these, financial mechanisms that, Vinny's touching on, that you're touching on, come into play, whether you have deep liquidity of a project or not. But if it hasn't kind of found its core actual utility to folk or its service, I think you're in a really, really dangerous spot with these projects.
Be like founders selling, Molly, their equity in a startup before they have product market fit.
Right.
Which is the exact same thing.
Has happened.
It's the exact same thing.
And it always winds up, as my grandmother would say, it's gonna end in tears.
Right. Because then it's gambling chips, right? It's just chips and there's no cash in the back room, let's say. Well,
but also you're not, the other thing, Molly, now that you bring it up, you think about the distraction level of, extreme wealth or quick money. It's very distracting. What I see when founders are able to liquidate, people are talking about like, hey, how much secondary should we allow the founders to take? How many should we buy from them? There's this like very thoughtful conversation in the best cases where they say, $25 million is going to make this founder start looking at planes and second homes, but $2 million or $4 million, they're going to pay their taxes. They're going to have $1 to $2 or $3 million left. They're going to pay down their mortgage or have some money for their kids' 529. It's completely different, right? And I think we've all seen that up close and personal, unfortunately, is that these big checks can really distract a founder. Experience what your customer experiences with user testing. Whether you're launching a new product, a prototype, or a marketing campaign, you'll get video feedback straight from the people who you want to reach most, your customers. The user testing human insight platform lets you understand it all from your customer's perspective, and it allows you to target your exact audience, ask any question, or request to perform tasks, and most valuably, get a window into their world. And unlike focus groups, which can take weeks or months to deliver results, with user testing, you get to see real reactions and hear real opinions really fast. You'll get responses in real time and at the speed your business demands. So get insights into what's working and what's not, so you can adjust your message, refine your user interface, and understand exactly how people are responding to and interacting with your product, service, or brand. The result? You'll feel what your customer feels, so you can build the best experience imaginable. For a free trial, visit usertesting.com/twist. Usertesting.com/twist. User testing, real human insight.
I want to ask you guys about the Ethereum merge, because that's a big topic on your list, and it's a big topic in general. It seemed like it was maybe going to happen on August 15th. Now it's sort of tentatively scheduled to happen September 15th. It's interesting for a lot of reasons. One is the goal, it sounds like, of this merge is to make Ethereum less harmful to the environment, which is near and dear to my heart. Also, though, provide additional security to its network and faster transaction speeds when the Ethereum network switches from proof of work to proof of stake. Sunny, you're nodding, so I'm going to call on you. Can you sort of explain to us what this merge is about and why it's such a big deal? Because it sounds like people have been snapping up Ethereum ahead of this event.
Yeah, I'll just try to distill it to its simplest form. I think what it will do, one, you said it reduce its computational intensity for making the transactions cemented into the blockchain. But more importantly, it reduces the costs. And one of the things that we've seen in the last few years, especially as the price of Ethereum and the whole crypto markets were really kind of pumping up, is that things became quite expensive. So this notion of gas fees and the transaction cost to do anything on the blockchain became quite expensive. And so from there, we saw a few different things happen. We saw a lot of new L2s emerge for Ethereum, trying to compete to solve that problem. I think what this will do is it'll actually push back innovation into Ethereum. And that's why there's the excitement and that, people were going to Avalanche or Polygon, and they'll continue to do that for specific use cases. But I think this allows more innovation to come back into Ethereum, which is why I'm excited about the merge and that coming to reality.
Yeah, the gas fees got too big, right?
Well, yeah, it's funny because the chat now is going crazy, being like, nope, does not provide extra security. It's a consensus layer change. Gas fees will stay the same. Help us understand, like, concretely how it will create extra innovation.
Well, like I tend to disagree. I think
I don't know, right? Yeah, everybody's just going to yell at each other because internet, but
yeah,
I don't mean to facilitate that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think basically by lowering sort of the compute intensity required for that consensus layer to solve those problems, the gas fees come down, right?
Right.
So sort of everything boils down. We'll go to first principles, right? You make it simpler, it's less compute intensive to do something, it's going to cost less money, right? We don't have to get into the, the code by code, what's happening there, but I think we'll start to see that happen.
Vinny, are we supposed to be buying Ethereum now?
I would
don't seem that interested. You're like, it's fine.
No, it's not that. I think there's a substantial amount of risks in this merge that's underpriced by the market. I think that my price target for Ethereum is around 2,000 pre-merge. So I think it rallies to 2,000. And then I think that if it goes well, it pumps to 2,500, 3,000. And if it goes badly, it dumps to 1,000. I think 2,000 is kind of my equilibrium point. So at the 1,600 level, I think you're gonna see another surge going to 2,000. But I'm betting on that. I don't think that we have a lot of steam in it. Like, the merge has been so overhyped already for so long. I don't think you have enough momentum for a 3,000 run pre-merge. I think if everything goes well, and there's a lot of arguments for ESG investors sort of coming into Ethereum that couldn't go into Ethereum pre-merge. They can go buy it post-merge because now it's more environmentally friendly, and it's, et cetera, et cetera. But that's assuming things go out. I mean, there's going to be a fork. We know this. There's going to be a proof of work fork that goes off and does their own thing. There's a little bit of ton of confusion, and Anatoly was on a podcast with me the other day, and he said something which I think is very fair, is that the surface area for attack on Ethereum is very large. And so it's very hard to say that this thing is entirely safe. Now they've done it. Think about it this way, okay? If you're a hacker or you're trying to do some nefarious activity, are you going to expose some vulnerability that during the test net merges, or are you going to just hold back and wait until it goes to mainnet and then, claim your victim, right?
Right.
The test, you're never going to, you're never going to release a 0-day vulnerability on a test net. You just keep quiet. And you wait until the final merge is complete. And that's the risk.
This is where we should explain that this switch from proof of work to proof of stake, for those who don't know, is a switch in the way that basically miners are compensated. Proof of work uses a lot more energy. As we know, there are reports that this merge, if Ethereum switches fully to proof of stake, could cut electricity use by 99%, but is much less tested. To your point, Vinny, right? We just don't know if this will be as bulletproof and as hard to hack. And so you're saying there are plenty of people out there who are probably just like, I know exactly how to bust into the system the second you make this switch, which is why there are some miners saying that they might. This is where the fork idea comes in. Some miners are saying, we're just going to stick to proof of work. We're going to keep doing our thing
that's
over here.
But it's a law of unintended consequences as well. We don't know what. I mean, I think Anatoly's just a really smart guy who understands.
Anatoly, the Solana founder.
Yeah. Understands it better than me and anyone else. And his point stuck with me, where he was just basically saying the surface area is very big. It's a non-zero chance. It's not like no one can go out there and say there's a 0% chance of something going wrong. The smartest people in the world cannot say.
Sure.
So if
when
it's
is
not
this
0%,
exactly happening?
15th of September. Roughly.
15th of September. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow. So we'll definitely keep track of that.
Why was it variable? There was some.
No,
was that just the community being like, we're not ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
it's just amazing that an open source project can coordinate such a big change. I mean, that's, to me, the fascinating part about this. With so much money on the line, I mean, it is pretty extraordinary. We're talking about billions of dollars are at stake here, and they're making the switch, and nobody's in charge.
Well, so here's the
database merge or a day. It's
yes. There's a couple of issues here. For example, can you imagine Jason and I signed a contract, and I promised to pay him $10,000 in USDC, for on a contract, and now the merge happens, and now is USDC on Ethereum proof of work and Ethereum proof of stake, and I give him $10,000 worth of useless tokens, 10,000 useless coins, because the one chain is, Circle says we're not honoring the USDC on that chain, but we're honoring on another chain. Or you have you can have these weird anomalies happen where even an NFT.
It would be like a great time to just get off the chain, get into fiat, and wait
Go
it
to
out.
Solana.
Well, okay, whatever. All right, listen.
Yeah.
On Friday, SEC Chair Gary Gensler, I know crypto's favorite person, wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal where he indicated that a lot of DeFi products might actually be securities. There is no reason to treat, there's a quote from Gary, the double G, there is no reason to treat the crypto market differently from the rest of the capital markets just because it uses different technology. Across the decades of cases, the Supreme Court has made clear that economic realities of a product, not the labels, determine whether it's a security under the securities laws. That BlockFi had borrowed crypto wasn't the issue here. In fact, you could replace crypto with any other asset. The issue is what it did with the borrowed assets and what it didn't do as a firm, provide the required disclosures to investors. He continued compliance with our laws, protects the investing public. Unfortunately, some platforms that offer crypto lending aren't complying with the applicable requirements. Sonny, what's your take on his piece? What's fair and what's unfair?
Yeah, I had a long chat with someone about this yesterday, and I think it's kind of I break it into two areas. If you are a crypto project trying to, in any way, shape, or form, replace what traditional banks do in our financial ecosystem, you are really going to be impacted by the statements that he made. Because whether you're lending, you're giving people interest, use different words, whatever you want, or anything that looks like what a traditional bank does, you are going to be under the purview of the SEC. And I think there's lots of projects across all different elements. It could be exchanges, they could be coins, they could be all over the place. So I think for using that lens as a say a consumer buying these things or an investor putting money into these things, those folks are going to become highly regulated because they're doing what banks do, and banks are regulated, and banks are going to make noise on the other end and say, hey, why are we subject to all these rules and why aren't these folks? I think on the flip side, if you're like an NFT project for like some of the things we were talking about before, you're not really replacing what a bank does. You're probably on the outside of this. That's the way I'm kind of translating it right now. And I think that's where a lot of the noise is coming from. And if you look specific to what he talked about with BlockFi and what they were doing, it was very much bank centric. So that's my view on how this is coming up.
Did the op-ed read to you like Gensler was saying to these, let's say these exchanges are like BlockFi, right? Like you should have known. You should have, which I think we have said many times on the show, that's true. Your security-like product looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, so it's probably security. But is it a little weird that he seems to be coming along saying, like, after the fact, we're going to tell you should have been complying with these rules all along? Or is it fair to say, like, you guys knew you were setting up basically a parallel, investment banking system, and of course this was always going to happen?
I think these are like the ebbs and flows of innovation, right? Even last time we talked, if you go back to 2000 and the dot-com bubble, right? Look at all the rules that we had to bring into place just around regulation of stocks, around what companies could do to IPO. And so these are the ebbs and flows of innovation, right? Something gets ahead of it, then the government has to come in because a bunch of people get hurt, which, is really terrible. And the government has to step in and fix it. So I think it is probably a little bit backwards looking, saying you should have known, but I feel like those were the same comments that led to Sarbanes-Oxley and all that kind of stuff, saying, well, hey, we shouldn't let companies, create sub companies and then price them themselves and use that to basically pump up their stock. You should have known better, right? This feels like what your parents tell you.
He does, Molly, have like a reconciliatory, is that a word? Regulatory approach here at the end, which he says, fortunately, there is a path forward. I encourage platforms offering crypto lending to come in and talk to SEC staff. Getting these platforms into compliance with the securities laws will benefit investors in crypto market. In the meantime, the SEC will serve as a cop on the beat. As with seatbelts in cars, we need to ensure that investor protections come standard in the crypto market. So it does seem like he knew that he was saber rattling and that he wants to saber rattle people down a certain path, was my take on it. Vinny, what do you think?
Look, the big issue here is that regulators don't move at the same speed as crypto. not even close. So it's always like it's trying to catch the horse after it's left the stable type of thing, and it's a constant game of like, I mean, 3 years ago I could have told you this is gonna. I mean, I've even sent you the clips. Like this is, I already said this years ago. This is what's going to happen, and the issue I guess is when you're on the ground. So at Civic, we tried actually integrating with when we launched our wallet a couple of years ago, which wound up we couldn't make it work because of Ethereum gas fees eventually. We tried actually integrating directly with these DeFi protocols. We spoke to Celsius, we spoke to Cred, a couple of others. We wound up not launching the product for one simple reason. None of them could guarantee us that the funds would be available when there's a withdrawal by our users, because they were rehypothecating funds, earning interest, and we thought they were taking undue amounts of risk and not disclosing it to their users. And we didn't like it. We didn't launch the product. We had so much work gone into it, and we couldn't find any one of these DeFi providers who could give us any assurances that our users wouldn't lose their money. So we never did it. And like I got probably the email threads with Celsius and a whole bunch of others. We had all these calls. And I'm looking at this, and we're looking at 2 years ago, like, we're probably going to miss the boat as a company on DeFi. And we did. Because I have my reputation to uphold. I don't want to have like, hey, I want to be like Celsius. Like, hey, we just lost all this money for our users. Vinny, I trusted you with all my Bitcoin, and now it's gone, in your wallet, and it's locked up in Celsius. Like, we couldn't have that happen. So we didn't do the product. Very simple. Wow. And then I watched BlockFi and all these other guys take off, and I was like, I'm an idiot. I should have done this. Because you feel bad at the time. And I'm like, well, then, you sit back and you go, oh boy, I hope this doesn't end badly. And then as it gets closer to ending, I'm like, oh boy, this is going to end badly.
See, this is what happens when you have to make hard decisions about doing things correctly, doing things right, being good to your user base, and
sleeping
innovating
well at night, Jason. Sleeping well at night. Like I don't want to wind up in jail.
Right.
No, you don't.
Like, it's not like someone may
you would not do well in jail, Vinny.
No, I wouldn't.
I would not do well in jail.
Someone put out a tweet.
A nice jail.
No, but like someone put a tweet out the other day, and they were like, they replied to one of my tweets, and they were like, oh, I can't remember what they said, but there was something along the lines of like, I've only made money in crypto, so whatever. And I'm like, you realize like I only got into crypto after like selling companies and crypto was like the latter part of my career, right?
Lightning round. Here we go. Rory Tribe Mess. What is this?
This was a project that had a failure, and they had kind of, and this kind of shows like sometimes these DAOs, right? What we all expect, you guys have talked about it separately. These DAOs are meant to be organizations where, it seems open. We talked about it even in the beginning, right? And this group had kind of promised the holders of their token the returns of some of the assets from the treasury. And then they basically just backed out of it. And they said, well, you know what, forget that vote. We're going to just take a different decision. And so this is kind of one of the kind of scary things of crypto, is that we look at these structures and organizations, say, oh, it's meant to be idealistic, but we see them fall back into place that we've seen it before. So that's a scary one where we've not seen the DAO structures work the way we anticipated them to work.
Somebody can just run off with the bag and say, we changed our mind.
We changed our mind. We didn't like the way that vote landed. Let's do something else. And it was all triggered by a hack, right? That's what led to sort of all this happening. And but so it's kind of fascinating. Can I make one more comment on the ETH merge thing? Because I was reading through the comments as Molly brought it up, and there's a lot of interest there. In terms of gas fees, the merge doesn't lead to it in like the first phase, but the merge sets up ETH for like a whole bunch of new features. Like one of them is like called sharding, that leads to ability to have more transactions per second, which will then lead to lower gas fees. So just for hopefully that calms folks down in the chat.
Gotcha.
Shard the old database.
Oh, nothing ever will. Yeah, but thank you.
Pseudo swap. What's the story there? Or blue chip NFT price drops. What are those?
Let's do blue chips first. Vinny, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, this weirdly seems related to the Ethereum merge, right? People are all of a sudden buying tons of Ethereum, but not NFTs, and now even Bored Ape and Cyberpunks are. That's the technical term for the prices dropping, by the way. A fart noise. I'm just a child.
There's a DAO called Ben DAO, and so Ben DAO is a DAO that you go to, and if you own an ape, you can borrow money against your ape. When Bored Apes are trading at, I don't know, hundreds of ETH each, and you go to Ben DAO and you put your ape in, you could borrow like, 100 ETH, 200 ETH, whatever it is, convert it to dollars, USDC, and you can do, you could basically spend that money. And so you have all this wealth that was created, all these Bored Ape holders, and they levered up. Guys, like, if anyone is listening to this call, the one thing I recommend people do not do is add leverage to crypto. Okay.
Volatile enough?
Yeah. Crypto is
would you like
leverage
some
in itself.
kerosene on top of your gasoline? No?
Exactly. So it's just, you just don't do it. Okay. Just don't do it. Anyway, so they go lever up, they go put their asset down there. If you need money, sell your Bored Ape. Okay. If you need the money, sell your assets. Lever up. Like the most you should do is like 1 or 2% if you need some leverage. That's it. Like, you should not be doing 20, 30% on any asset. Anyway, long story short is a lot of these apes, the price have come down so much that there's a margin call that's about to happen. And because the floor is dropping, there's a liquidation event that can happen. So if it drops a certain point, there's going to be hundreds of apes sold at the floor prices to get the money back for the people lending to the DAO. That's going to crash the price of apes. Then you have a downward spiral, you have a cascade, and
that's what happened with Bitcoin, right? People were margined at 60K because they're like, I bought my Bitcoin at 30K. It's at 60K. I'll take half the money and spend it. It's house's money. What they don't realize is when they hit that 32K or whatever, they get liquidated to pay back people. Now they have nothing.
So this is the issue now. The issue everyone is struggling with is the people who in every cycle you get let's say I came in cycle number 2 in Bitcoin, like 2013, 14. Then you had cycle number 3, which is like 2017. Cycle number 4, which is this recent one. Every cycle, the people from the previous cycle learn not to use leverage. The people from the new cycle don't. So all these Bored Ape peoples are all a bunch of crypto noobs that are just using. And so the next cycle, once they get liquidated and they lose their apes, the next cycle they'll be a bit more conservative. And hopefully over time, as a global community, we get smarter about using leverage as crypto. But for now, that's the problem, is that this leverage, and so the floors keep dropping because everyone's waiting for the liquidation. Like, if you have a Bored Ape, what do? You probably sell it now, you drop the floor a lot more, and you wait for it to collapse so you can buy it back cheaper.
All right, everybody, this has been an amazing crypto roundtable. We'll do another one in 2 weeks. Thank you, Vinny. Thank you, Sandeep, aka Sunny Madra. Sunny, give a shout out to your company. I know that last time you got a couple of new customers. Tell everybody what the company is.
Yeah, we Definitive Intelligence, Definitive.io. We basically focus on helping Web3 teams understand users and grow their user base. And so if you have a project and you're going back to what we were talking about earlier and you really want to drive actual function and services and maybe even a good from your project, come talk to us and we'll help you grow your user base.
All right. Shout out, Sunny. I'm an investor. Okay. And Vinny?
I'm working on 2 things really. One is civic.me. You can check it out. It's an explorer for your NFTs, and we've got some really cool features coming to predict NFTs. It focuses more on Solana right now, but you can do Ethereum as well. And then I'm working on waitroom.com, which is a video conferencing platform. It's
can't
really
wait to
cool
use it.
Rapid fire conversations.
Gary Gensler should get on waitlist and then use that.
You can take all these crypto questions.
And then he can take all these crypto questions about compliance. Boom, we fixed it.
Virtual press conference is the perfect use case. You get like 30 journalists, give them 2 minutes each. You go online, and there's a clock that counts down, and the next person goes in. So, we'd love people to try it out. It's still very new, early tech, but it's
give
looking
some
pretty
feedback.
Cool.
It's in beta. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Waitroom.com. I said waitlist, but it's not. Waitroom.
Waitroom.
Thanks, guys.
See everybody.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Seorang warga untuk berobat ke puskesmas Bengkunat dengan menggunakan tandu. Dalam sebuah video viral di pesisir barat Lampung itu menunjukkan warga tersebut dibawa menggunakan tandu yang terbuat dari kain sarung dan sebilah bambu. Berdasarkan informasi yang berhasil dihimpun, warga tersebut merupakan warga Pekon Siringgading Waiharu. Informasi lebih lengkapnya akan disampaikan oleh rekan jurnalis kami dari Tribun Lampung. Ada Saidal Arif yang akan melaporkannya. Silakan rekan Saidal.
Oke, terima kasih rekan Firda. Selamat sore di Tribun dimanapun Anda berada. Jadi dapat kami laporkan kemarin sempat terjadi video viral yang menghebohkan warga pesisir barat Lampung, bahwasannya puluhan warga bergotong royong menggunakan tandu untuk berobat ke puskesmas terdekat. Jadi tampak dalam video tersebut juga warga yang sakit tersebut dibawa menggunakan tandu yang terbuat dari kain sarung dan juga bambu ya. Kemudian warga tersebut menurut keterangan dari Pratin ataupun Kepala Desa Pekon Sering Gading itu mengalami sakit yang cukup parah, yaitu sakit komplikasi perut, komplikasi jantung, kemudian juga paru-paru, kemudian terindikasi terkena tumor yang cukup ganas. Jadi untuk diketahui Pekon Waiharu inilah satu-satunya pekon yang masih cukup terisolir ya, yang sangat terisolir di Kabupaten Pesisir Barat Lampung. Jadi Pekon Waiharu ini berada di tengah-tengah Taman Bukit Barisan Selatan dan juga terhimpit di Samudra Hindia dan juga diputuskan menjadi daerah yang enklave ya. Jadi pembangunan jalan menuju Waiharu ini memang masih sangat memprihatinkan hingga hari ini. Jadi menurut keterangan dari Pratin Pekon Sering Gading, hal ini juga bukan pertama kali terjadi. Ini sangat sering terjadi. Setiap warga dari Waiharu itu mengalami sakit, mereka harus terpaksa bergotong royong membawa warga yang sakit itu untuk berobat ke puskesmas terdekat dengan berjalan kaki. Jadi jarak dari Pekon Sering Gading ataupun Waiharu tersebut ke puskesmas terdekat itu sejauh 15 km atau bisa dikatakan sangat unik ya. Karena memang menuju jarak dari Pekon Waiharu ke kecamatan Mengkunat itu bisa memakan 7 jam, bahkan bisa memakan waktu berhari-hari karena jarak tempuh ya. Kendala utamanya itu jarak tempuh, kemudian cuaca. Jadi ketika memang terjadi banjir, karena kita butuh harus melewati 7 muara untuk sampai ke daerah luar. Jadi informasi selanjutnya dari Pratin Waiharu itu warga yang mengalami sakit tersebut kemudian hari ini sudah meninggal dunia karena mungkin itu diakibatkan keterlambatan penanganan medis. Jadi sangat pilu sih Tribuner ya. Jadi di tahun 2002 ini di Kabupaten Pesisir Barat masih juga ada daerah yang sangat terisolir. Bahkan untuk menuju ke daerah tersebut itu kita harus berjalan kaki. Jadi ke daerah tersebut tidak ada akses jalan ataupun kendaraan yang bisa memasuk. Jadi sampai hari ini kendalanya dari pemerintah Kabupaten Pesisir Barat sendiri untuk membangun jalan tersebut itu karena diputusnya surat perjanjian kerjasama antara Pemkab Pesisir Barat dengan Balai Besar Taman Bukit Nasional. Jadi pada hari ini juga masyarakat pesisir barat khususnya masyarakat Waiharu sangat berharap kepada pemerintahan pusat untuk bisa mendengar kemudian melihat kondisi mereka pada hari ini. Karena ini juga sudah terjadi berpuluh-puluhan tahun. Bahkan pada zaman kedudukan Belanda dulu di Waiharu ini memang sudah diakui sebagai sebuah tanah adat ya. Tetapi setelah kemerdekaan Indonesia Waiharu ini seperti dikucilkan, bahkan mereka seperti dianaktirikan hingga hari ini juga tidak ada pembangunan di sana. Jadi akses kesehatan itu belum mereka dapatkan gitu Tribunal. Jadi bisa kita lihat setiap warga yang mengalami sakit di sana mereka harus bergotong royong, kemudian dibawa dengan tandu, kemudian mereka juga terkadang juga harus meninggal di perjalanan karena memang terlambat mendapatkan penanganan. Jadi demikian tekan Firda yang bisa saya laporkan.
Baik, terima kasih rekan Saidil Arif dari Tribun Lampung atas laporan Anda. Selamat bertugas kembali. Kita beralih ke informasi selanjutnya, Saudara. Warga masyarakat dengan sukarela gotong royong melakukan penimbunan Jalan Pulau Singkep, Sukarame, Bandar Lampung pada Kamis 25 Agustus. Penimbunan dilakukan dengan menggunakan puing-puing bangunan yang diunjal menggunakan mobil pickup. Penimbunan dilakukan lantaran kondisi Jalan Pulau Singkep ini dalam keadaan berlubang dan rusak parah. Informasi lebih lengkapnya akan disampaikan oleh rekan jurnalis kami dari Tribun Lampung. Ada Kiki Adi Pratama yang akan melaporkan. Silakan Kiki.
Baik, terima kasih rekan Firda. Jadi memang kemarin tepatnya pada hari Kamis sejumlah warga sedang bergotong royong untuk menimbun salah satu jalan yang ada di Kota Bandar Lampung, yakni Jalan Pulau Singkep, Kecamatan Sukarame, Kota Bandar Lampung. Penimbunan yang dilakukan oleh warga tersebut lantaran memang kondisi jalan di Pulau Singkep itu sendiri memang dalam keadaan rusak parah, bahkan keadaannya keadaan berlubang, kemudian juga bercampur dengan pasir dan tanah yang sangat berantakan lah. Kemudian bisa kita lihat di tayangan video tersebut bahwa kendaraan yang melintas harus berhati-hati dengan cara memilih jalan supaya tidak terperosok di jalan tersebut. Nah, kemudian untuk kendaraan roda 2 pun sama, harus berhati-hati supaya tidak masuk ke lubang. Bahkan mereka harus memilih jalan di pinggir-pinggir jalan yang memang masih terlihat ada jalan ataupun aspal-aspal yang sedikit. Nah, seperti yang ada di video itu, penimbunan dilakukan oleh warga dengan menggunakan puing-puing bangunan yang diangkut menggunakan mobil pickup, dan ini dilakukan secara sukarela dengan dasar hanya untuk membantu agar warga masyarakat ataupun pengendara yang melewati jalan itu tidak terlalu parah saat mengendarinya, karena memang jalan yang sangat banyak lubangnya, bahkan sangat tidak nyaman untuk dilewati, sehingga dikhawatirkan bisa mengakibatkan hal-hal yang tidak diinginkan ataupun bisa terjadi kecelakaan ataupun terjadinya kecelakaan. Begitu rekan Firda.
Ya, baik. Terima kasih rekan Kiki Adi Pratama dari Tribun Lampung atas laporannya. Selamat bertugas kembali. Kita beralih ke informasi lainnya, saudara. Mengetahui pasokan bahan bakar minyak solar semakin terbatas, sejumlah SPBU Palembang menerapkan aturan pengisian BBM sehari 1 kali bagi sejumlah kendaraan. Hal itu dilakukan untuk meminimalisir terjadinya kemacetan akibat padatnya kendaraan yang mengantri BBM. Selain itu, aturan tersebut diberlakukan guna menghindari kendaraan yang memiliki tangki bermodif. Informasi lebih lengkapnya akan disampaikan oleh rekan jurnalis kami dari Tribun Sumsel, ada Azan yang akan melaporkannya. Silakan rekan Azan.
Baik, terima kasih rekan Firda. Bisa kita ketahui memang dalam beberapa bulan terakhir ini ataupun hingga saat ini antrian SPBU masih menjadi permasalahan utama dalam lingkup masyarakat. Dikarenakan memang sering terjadi kemacetan diakibatkan oleh banyaknya pengendara atau angkutan yang bermuatan besar yang mengantri hingga ke batas jalan protokol, yang itu membuat kendaraan yang ingin melintasi jalur tersebut terhalang akibat antrian yang membludak tersebut. Nah, maka dari itu pihak dari ataupun petugas dari SPBU sudah mengatur antrian tersebut dengan salah satu caranya menggunakan antrian dengan 2 arah yang dimana antrian tersebut dirubah menjadi arah yang saling berlawanan. Dan ini juga menjadi permasalahan dari lingkup masyarakat dikarenakan antrian yang berlawanan ini mengambil jalur yang saling berhadapan. Dan ini juga terbilang bahwasanya antrian tersebut tidak kompetitif dan masih menjadi kemacetan juga. Maka dari itu kembali dari SPBU juga menerapkan aturan bagi para pengendara khususnya yang berbahan bakar minyak solar, itu mengantri atau membeli BBM 1 kali sehari. Dan ini dilakukan juga mengetahui bahwasanya memang pasokan bahan bakar minyak solar itu terbatas. Jadi sejumlah pasokan minyak solar di sejumlah SPBU ini memang menerapkan aturan 1 kali dikarenakan memang untuk juga menghindari adanya pelaku atau tindak yang suka melakukan tindak kecurangan, yang khususnya banyaknya kendaraan yang menggunakan tangki bermodif, dan ini juga diberlakukan oleh para petugas atau di sejumlah SPBU juga guna untuk menghindari tindakan tersebut. Nah, selain itu juga dari bahan bakar minyak solar, adapun bahan bakar minyak yang lain juga yang mengakibatkan seiring banyaknya kendaraan dan menyebabkan juga antrian dari beberapa bahan bakar minyak khususnya di SPBU ini semakin marak antriannya. Jadi sebelumnya itu memang dari bahan bakar minyak solar yang hingga saat ini masih menjadi antrian yang panjang, kemudian diikuti oleh beberapa bahan bakar minyak yang bersubsidi lain. Nah, ini juga yang akan menjadi problematika di masyarakat, khususnya dikarenakan banyaknya dari masyarakat yang mengeluh tidak ada penerapan yang khusus ataupun solusi yang diberikan kepada petugas SPBU mengenai aturan antrian yang ataupun pembelian minyak yang berada di SPBU. Nah, dan ini juga bisa saya sampaikan mengenai hal tersebut, pihak petugas juga menerapkan aturan yang saya sebutkan tadi mengenai pembatasan dari bahan bakar minyak solar. Jadi bahan bakar minyak solar ini ataupun bahan bakar yang bersubsidi lain diatur dengan sesuai dari tangki kendaraan pemilik kendaraan tersebut. Jadi misalkan dari kendaraan tersebut mempunyai tangki yang berukuran literannya sekitar 200 liter dan itu masih bisa diisi apabila dia mengisi sekitar 60 liter atau 100 liter. Dan apabila kendaraan tersebut sudah mengisi full dari literan kendaraan yang sudah ditentukan, maka dari itu kendaraan tersebut tidak bisa mengisi di hari itu juga, melainkan harus mengisi di hari selanjutnya. Kemudian juga untuk mengetahui agar literan itu sudah didata oleh beberapa petugas SPBU mengenai nantinya akan dilakukan uji coba menggunakan aplikasi My Pertamina. Dan gunanya aplikasi My Pertamina nanti itu untuk mengetahui bahwasanya ada beberapa kendaraan yang masih menggunakan tangki bermodif. Nah, dan hal ini juga yang dilakukan oleh petugas untuk mencegah dan menghindari banyaknya sering banyak kendaraan yang melakukan tindak kecurangan dengan cara memodif tangki yang tidak sesuai dengan kendaraannya tersebut. Mungkin demikian tidak.
Ya, baik. Terima kasih rekan Azan dari Tribun Sumsel atas laporan Anda. Selamat bertugas kembali. Kita beralih ke informasi selanjutnya, Saudara. Anggota DPRD Kabupaten Tambrau, Provinsi Papua Barat dan Sekretariat mengunjungi Kota Manado. Kedatangan mereka dalam rangka studi banding pariwisata Manado pada Kamis 25 Agustus. Para anggota DPRD Kabupaten Tambrau di bawah pimpinan Ketua DPRD Yeremia Sedik melakukan pertemuan dengan jajaran Pemkot Manado di ruang serbaguna Pemkot Manado. Informasi lebih lengkapnya akan disampaikan oleh rekan jurnalis kami dari Tribun Manado. Ada Arthur Rompis yang akan melaporkannya. Silakan rekan Arthur.
Ya, selamat sore Firda dan Tribuners. Jadi kemarin tim dari Kabupaten Tambrau di Provinsi Papua Barat yang berisi anggota Dewan dan Sekretariat DPRD Kabupaten Tambrau mengunjungi Kota Manado dan mereka langsung disambut oleh tim dari Pemkot Manado yang dipimpin oleh Asisten 1 Pemkot Manado Hari Sabtono dan juga Sekretaris Dinas Pariwisata Kota Manado. Jadi dalam pertemuan ini dibahas mengenai pariwisata di antara kedua daerah ini. Jadi ini memang sesuai dengan tujuan dari tim dari DPRD Tambrau, yakni kedatangan mereka untuk mempelajari pengelolaan pariwisata di Kota Manado. Karena menurut mereka pariwisata di Kota Manado ini sudah cukup baik pengelolaannya, serta Manado pula banyak objek wisata yang sudah dikenal di dunia internasional. Objek wisata, spot wisata di Kota Manado, kemudian mengambil studi banding komparasi mengenai pariwisata di Kota Manado. Jadi memang kedatangan dari tim anggota DPRD Kabupaten Tambrau ini juga merupakan salah satu bentuk dari banyaknya wisatawan Nusantara yang berkunjung di Kota Manado pasca pandemi ini. Jadi ini tidak hanya baik untuk Kabupaten Tambrau sendiri, tapi ini juga memiliki nilai positif bagi Kota Manado, yakni bangkitnya kembali pariwisata di Kota Manado oleh kunjungan turis Nusantara. Demikian Firda.
Baik, terima kasih rekan Arthur Rompis dari Tribun Manado atas laporan Anda. Selamat bertugas kembali. Kita beralih, akan kami tampilkan Tribuners wawancara dari Ketua DPRD Tambrau, Yeremia Sedik. Berikut liputannya untuk Anda.
Kabupaten Tambrau ini untuk apa kunjungan ini?
Ini kunjungan dari DPRD Kabupaten Tambrau. Ini di salah satu agenda lembaga DPRD yaitu studi banding. Objeknya adalah mencari referensi di Kota Manado, terutama tentang rencana induk pariwisata daerah. Nah, jadi kita mau belajar dari Kota Manado, ripadanya, lalu kita mau kembangkan juga di Kabupaten Tamro. Kebetulan di Tamro banyak potensi yang kita harus poles untuk jadi salah satu ikon ke depan. Itu di sana ada pasir panjang, ada penyu belimbing, kemudian ada juga pengamatan burung, ada air terjunnya, dan banyak sekali kan. Ada pisang pisang raksasa ya. Pisang raksasa yang di seluruh dunia ini hanya ada di PENNEY dan Papua Barat itu ada di Tamro. Jadi banyak potensi di sana yang kita poles. Hanya kita butuh rencana induk pariwisata daerahnya. Maka hari ini kita berkunjung ke Kota Manado, terutama Dinas Pariwisata Kota Manado. Dan kita akan besok kita kunjungi beberapa spot-spot yang ada untuk menjadi referensi untuk Kabupaten Tamro ke depan. Ya, memang kita daerah yang baru berusia 13 tahun ya kita butuh.
Jadi Pak, ini kenapa pilihnya ke Manado itu dibanding alasannya?
Pilih ke Manado karena di wilayah Indonesia bagian timur yang sudah maju salah satunya adalah Manado. Nah, salah satunya adalah Manado karena sebelum ada COVID itu sudah wisatawan asing sudah berdatangan
yang penerbangan
ke Manado.
langsung
Nah,
itu.
Dan kita di Tamro sempat juga mau lakukan festival di sana yang dan itu.
Bayi korban penculikan di Kecamatan Pemangkat, Kabupaten Sambas ditemukan oleh warga di Kota Singkawang. Bayi tersebut ditemukan di sebuah warung di pinggir jalan Ratu Sepudak, Kota Singkawang oleh si pemilik warung bernama Eli Lestari. Setelah diselamatkan oleh Eli, warga kemudian menghubungi Polsek Pemangkat. Bayi tersebut kemudian dijemput langsung oleh Kapolsek Pemangkat Kompol Firah Maidar. Informasi lebih lengkapnya akan disampaikan oleh rekan jurnalis kami dari Tribun Pontianak, ada Rizky Kurnia yang akan melaporkannya. Silakan rekan Rizky.
Ya, baik Firda dan juga Tribunnews. Jadi memang pada Kamis 25 Agustus kemarin peristiwa penculikan sempat terjadi di Kecamatan Pemangkat di Kabupaten Sambas, di mana korban penculikan tersebut adalah seorang bayi yang baru berusia 40 hari. Nah, berdasarkan informasi yang kami dapatkan, peristiwa penculikan tersebut bermula saat beberapa orang datang ke rumah korban untuk berbelanja. Namun saat korban tengah lengah, para pelaku ini lalu membawa bayi tersebut dan langsung melarikan diri. Nah, orang tua bayi yang panik saat itu kemudian langsung melapor ke pihak Polsek Pemangkat. Hingga sekitar pukul 4 sore, seorang pemilik warung di Sungai Bulan di Kota Singkawang kaget saat menemukan bayi yang berada di warung miliknya yang sudah lama kosong atau tidak digunakan. Nah, menurut pemilik warung bernama Eli Lestari, saat itu dirinya diberitahu oleh anaknya bahwa ada bayi yang terbaring sendirian di warung tersebut. Nah, mendengar hal itu, ia kemudian bergegas menyelamatkan bayi tersebut. Memang berdasarkan pengakuannya, saat itu dirinya sempat panik hingga warga sekitar berkumpul di kediamannya. Dia juga sempat mengira bahwa bayi tersebut adalah bayi yang dibuang oleh orang tuanya. Hingga beberapa saat kemudian ada seorang warga dari Kecamatan Pemangkat yang ikut melihat bayi tersebut dan kemudian melapor ke Polsek Pemangkat. Nah, sekitar pukul 5 sore, Kapolsek Pemangkat, Kompol Firah Maidar datang ke rumah Eli untuk menjemput bayi tersebut. Dan untuk saat ini kondisi bayi dalam keadaan sehat dan pihak kepolisian juga sudah berhasil mengamankan satu pelaku penculikan tersebut. Dan untuk saat ini pihak kepolisian masih mendalami motif dari kasus penculikan yang sempat menghebohkan warga Pemangkat ini. Begitu, Firda.
Baik, terima kasih rekan jurnalis dari Tribun Pontianak atas laporan Anda. Selamat bertugas kembali. Akan kami tampilkan Tribunnews wawancara dari pemilik warung tempat bayi ditemukan, yakni Eli Lestari. Berikut liputannya untuk Anda.
Pas saya jumpa pertama, anak buah saya dengar suara nangis. Jadi saya lihatlah, saya kira kan udah kecil dia tidak ada di tumpangan balik sekolah gitu kan. Saya lihat pas sampai situ, yang tidak ada gitu kan. Sekali saya lihat ke sini, bayi di sini. Jadi saya ambil lah. Saya panggil tetangga saya pas lewat, saya kan bingung kan, nah gimana, apa kalau seke atau gimana. Nah mereka tidak tahu ada cerita. bayi hilang.
Waktu pertama kali lihat, apa yang kakak lakukan waktu itu?
Saya sih sok Bang. Soalnya kan baru kayak gitu kejadian kan. Jadi panik. Nak dibawa kemana? Jadi yang pas tetangga.
Tapi udah digendong gitu ya?
Udah. Pas tetangga ngomong susukan dulu. Bilang kan soalnya takutkan dehidrasi kan.
Partai Gerakan Indonesia Raya atau Gerindra dan Partai Kebangkitan Bangsa atau PKB wilayah Provinsi Maluku Utara menggelar silaturahim antar kader. Mereka kumpul bersama mengadakan pertemuan membicarakan kesiapan Pilpres, Pileg, serta Pilkada bertempat di Sekretariat PKB di Kelurahan Bastiong, Kecamatan Ternate Selatan, Kota Ternate pada Rabu 24 Agustus. Informasi lebih lengkapnya akan disampaikan oleh rekan jurnalis kami dari Tribun Ternate. Ada Amri Besi yang akan melaporkannya. Silakan rekan Amri.
Ya, terima kasih Firda. Partai Gerindra Indonesia Raya atau Gerindra dan Partai Kebangkitan Bangsa PKB wilayah Provinsi Maluku Utara menggelar silaturahmi antara kader, mengadakan pertemuan membicarakan kesiapan Pilpres yang dilakukan pada Sekretariat PKB di Kelurahan Bastion, Kecamatan Ternate Selatan pada Rabu 24 Agustus. Selain itu, sangat disayangkan tidak ikut hadir oleh Ketua DPW Partai Gerindra Maluku Utara, Muhaimin Syarif, yang belum sempat menghadiri silaturahmi yang dilakukan oleh dua partai nasional sebagai bentuk koalisi partai yang dibicarakan terkait dengan hal-hal teknis mengenai 3 poin penting, yaitu kesiapan Pilpres, Pileg, dan Pilkada. Ya, Firda, selain itu Ketua DPW Partai PKB Maluku Utara, Jasra Usman, mengatakan bahwa ini merupakan salah satu hal pertama yang dilakukan di Sekretariat PKB sebagai bentuk koalisi antara kedua partai, dan dirinya merespon dengan sangat baik dan mengharapkan bahwa pertemuan berikutnya yang ditetapkan pada tanggal 30 Agustus, dirinya beserta pengurus kader partai akan berkunjung ke kantor DPW Partai, maksud kami DPD Partai Gerindra Provinsi Maluku Utara. Ya, begitupun direspon baik oleh Ketua Bapilu Muhammad bin Tahir yang mengatakan bahwa dirinya beserta kader dan pengurus partai menunggu kehadiran Ketua PKB Provinsi Maluku Utara beserta pengurus kader partai untuk membicarakan hal-hal teknis terkait dengan kesiapan menjemput momentum 2024 yang akan datang. Ya, selain itu sempat saling menawar untuk pasangan calon pilgub di Provinsi Maluku Utara dengan adanya kedua pasangan yang telah berkoalisi, partai politik yang melakukan koalisi ini bakal dibicarakan hal teknis terkait kesiapan pada tanggal 30 yang bakal didatangkan di kantor DPD Partai Gerindra Provinsi Maluku Utara. Ya, mungkin itu yang dapat dilaporkan. Sekian.
Ya. Baik, terima kasih rekan Amri Besi dari Tribun Ternate atas laporan Anda. Selamat bertugas kembali. Kita beralih ke informasi selanjutnya, Saudara. Viral unggahan tabrak lari dialami di flyover Manahan pada Kamis 25 Agustus malam. Unggahan tersebut dibagikan oleh akun Instagram @visitsurakarta yang membagikan direct message atau DM. Dalam foto yang diunggah tersebut juga membagikan kondisi korban yang diduga menjadi korban tabrak lari di flyover Manahan. Mengenai adanya kasus tersebut, Wali Kota Solo Gibran Rakabuming Raka mengaku siap memproses dan mengamankan CCTV. Informasi lebih lengkapnya akan disampaikan oleh rekan jurnalis kami dari Tribun Solo. Ada Tara Wahyu yang akan melaporkannya. Silakan rekan Tara.
Baik, selamat sore rekan Firda dan selamat sore Tribuners. Ya, di Kota Solo sendiri sekarang sedang ramai atau sedang viral adanya isu dugaan tabrak lari yang terjadi di flyover Manahan. Kejadian tersebut diketahui pada hari Kamis tanggal 25 Agustus 2022 pada pukul 8 malam. Kejadian itu viral setelah diduga anak dari korban yang jatuh atau tertabrak lari di flyover Manahan itu mengunggah atau mendm salah satu akun Instagram Visit Surakarta dan membagikannya ke sosial media. Mengenai adanya pemberitaan itu, Wali Kota Solo Gibran Rakabuming Raka menyerahkan semuanya atau semua kasusnya ke Kasatlantas Kota Surakarta. Gibran pun mengaku bahwa pihaknya akan melakukan peninjauan atau pengamanan dari jauh, di mana beliau akan melakukan mengamankan CCTV di sekitaran flyover Purwosari. Sebagai informasi Firda dan Tribunnews bahwa kejadian ini bukanlah kejadian kecelakaan di flyover Purwosari ini sendiri, bukan kejadian yang pertama, namun sudah terjadi 2 kali, sedangkan kasus pertamanya sendiri hingga sampai saat ini belum diketahui kejelasannya. Sementara itu, Firda dan Tribunnews, dari konfirmasi Tribun Solo sendiri pada sore hari tadi, pihak Kasatlantas Solo, yaitu Kompol Agus Santoso, mengatakan bahwa kronologi kejadiannya sendiri merupakan kesalahan dari pemotor atau korban yang sempat viral tersebut. Kompol Agus mengatakan bahwa korban yang melaju dari Jalan Dr. Muardi itu melanggar aturan, di mana dia tetap mengendarai sepeda motornya untuk melaju ke Jalan MT Haryono, di mana di pertigaan flyover Manan sendiri itu dari Jalan MT Haryono hanya satu arah menuju Jalan Dr. Muardi. Namun pihaknya sendiri belum bisa mengetahui apakah akan melakukan penilangan terhadap korban yang sudah viral. Sedangkan Kompol Agus sendiri menegaskan bahwa pihaknya akan terus melakukan pendalaman terkait kasus tersebut, dan pihaknya juga telah melakukan perbantuan terkait asuransi jasa raja. Seperti itu rekan Firda.
Ya, baik. Terima kasih rekan jurnalis dari Tribun Solo atas laporan Anda. Selamat bertugas kembali. Akan kami tampilkan Tribuners wawancara dari Wali Kota Solo Gibran Rakabuming Raka dan juga Kasatlantas Polresta Solo Agustus Susanto. Berikut liputannya untuk Anda.
Kita tindak lanjuti untuk keperluan lain-lain seperti untuk jasa rahasia kita sudah bantu untuk uruskan. Itu coba lihat di Instagramnya, itu sudah ada ucapan terima kasih dari putranya. Ya, kita ngimbau kepada masyarakat kalau ada kejadian seperti itu langsung lapor aja ya. Jangan di medsos doang. Kita kan nggak bisa lihat. Tapi kita sudah bergerak untuk periksa semua TKP sama secara administratif untuk membantu meringankan korban lewat jasa rahasia juga kita sudah
mengawal kasus tersebut ya, dan mengawal kasus tersebut untuk sampai ketemu yang menabrak tadi.
Ini baru kita dalami. Dalam berproses lah kita. Ya.
Pun Pak Kasatlantas. Pokoknya aku siap memproses, siap mengamankan. Selanjutnya biar Pak Kasatlantas. Kapan Pak Kasatlantas? Urusan Pak Kasatlantas. Ini monitor dari Jawa. Kan dulu pernah juga kejadian seperti itu, tapi ini jam berapa ya kejadian ini malam? Meskipun bukan warga Solo dari situ. Menunggu. Nanti pentil Pak Kasatlantas ya. Kejadian yang dulu aja kita kontak, aku harus berusaha udah kontak korban juga, anak korban, kita udah mengusahakan baru laporan tadi pagi. Sebenarnya saya tuh nyarankan kalau ada kejadian kayak gini tuh lapor itu pas, kalau bisa setelah kejadian.
Akan ada mungkin bantuan untuk
nanti ya
korbannya
wis diurus Pak. Satpam.
Nanti Pemkot ada bantuan untuk korbannya gitu. Ada bantuan untuk korban nggak? Atau gimana?
Ya nanti kita lihat dulu. Yang penting prioritas kita nangkep yang lari itu. Udah dia Pak.
CCTV itu yang
udah ada.
Tadi dari diskusi dengan Pak Kapolres nih.
Ditunggu aja. Nanti yang melaporkan Pak Kasat Lantas saja ya. Tenang ya. Tetap kok. Saya ono PR menahi sing begal.
Sedang asyik mandi di lokasi wisata Berayan, Kecamatan Lopang, Aceh Besar, 4 santri hilang terseret arus pada Kamis 25 Agustus. Kalaksa Badan Penanggulangan Bencana Daerah atau BPBD Aceh Besar, Ridwan Jamil membenarkan kejadian tersebut. Hingga saat para korban masih belum ditemukan. Korban adalah santri Dayah Raudatul Quran Al-Aziziyah yang berlokasi di Desa Lamsiteh, Kecamatan Darul Imarah, Aceh Besar. Informasi lebih lengkapnya akan disampaikan oleh rekan jurnalis kami dari Tribunnews Indonesia, ada Indra Wijaya yang akan melaporkannya. Silakan rekan Indra.
Baik, terima kasih rekan Serda. Selamat sore Tribunnews, dapat kami sampaikan telah terjadi laka sungai di lokasi pemandian Berayan, Kecamatan Lepung, Kabupaten Aceh Besar pada Kamis 25 kemarin. Kejadian itu bermula saat santri Daya Raudatul Quran Al-Aziziyah, Kecamatan yang berlokasi di Lamsite, Kecamatan Darul Imarah bersama pimpinan Daya dan ke-30 santri sedang berwisata ke lokasi wisata tersebut. Namun sekitar pukul 14.00 dengan cuaca yang sangat mendung, tiba-tiba air dari hulu lokasi pemandian tersebut sekali membesar dan menyeret 5 orang santri yang sedang mandi di lokasi wisata tersebut. 1 di antaranya berhasil diselamatkan oleh warga, namun 4 orang lainnya hilang.
Halo rekan Indra.
Halo.
Ya,
Suara saya apa bisa dengar?
Ya, silakan dilanjutkan rekan Indra.
Baik, adapun identitas 5 korban tersebut yakni ialah Saiful Amani asal kota Fajar, Aceh Selatan. Saiful Amani ini berhasil diselamatkan oleh warga saat terseret arus sungai di lokasi pemandian Berayan. Kemudian korban lainnya itu Fakrul Razi, 20 tahun. Fakrul Razi ini merupakan santri yang bersekolah di Daya tersebut yang berasal dari negeri jiran Malaysia. Kemudian Darazatul Aulia, umur 17 tahun, asal Kabupaten Abdiah. Dan M. Reza Asri, umur 18 tahun, asal Punge, Banda Aceh. Dan terakhir Akmadal Hadi, asal Kecamatan Pekanbaru, Aceh Besar. Menurut keterangan yang kami dapat dari Kalaksa BPBD Aceh Besar, update terkini kasus pencarian korban hilang terseret arus tersebut. Saat ini 1 orang korban berhasil ditemukan atas nama Ahmadal Hadi, 17 tahun. Korban ditemukan sekitar pukul 11.30 sebelum waktu Jumat. Korban ditemukan sekitar 1,5 km dari lokasi kejadian perkara. Korban ditemukan dalam kondisi meninggal dunia dan tersangkut kayu. Saat ini sendiri 3 korban lainnya masih dalam proses pencarian oleh tim gabungan BPBD Aceh Besar, BPBD Aceh Besar, Unit SAR dan TNI Polri di lokasi pemandian wisata Berayan. Demikian rekan Firda.
Ya, baik, terima kasih rekan Indra Wijaya dari Tribunnews Indonesia atas laporan Anda. Selamat bertugas kembali. Kita beralih ke informasi lainnya, Saudara. Kawasan Kota Tua Jakarta bersolek dengan wajah barunya. Diketahui sebelumnya Pemprov DKI Jakarta telah mengumumkan rampungnya proses penataan ulang kawasan Kota Tua sejak Rabu 23 Agustus lalu. Tak hanya sekedar menjadi lebih rapi, penataan kawasan Kota Tua juga mengedepankan fungsi area pedestrian, sehingga kawasan wisata tersebut kini menjadi lebih ramah pejalan kaki. Informasi lebih lengkapnya akan disampaikan oleh rekan jurnalis kami dari Tribun Jakarta, ada Pebi Adeliana yang akan melaporkannya. Silakan rekan Pebi.
Iya, Firda. Tribuners, wajah baru kawasan Kota Tua kini lebih mengedepankan fungsi area pedestrian. Setelah direvitalisasi, kini wajah baru dari kawasan wisata unggulan di Kota Jakarta ini lebih ramah pejalan kaki. Nah, kemarin saya sudah berkesempatan berkunjung secara langsung ke kawasan Kota Tua. Menurut pantauan kami di lokasi, tepatnya pada hari Kamis tanggal 25 Agustus 2022, jalur pedestrian yang ada di Jalan Lada, tepatnya di depan stasiun Jakarta Kota menuju ke arah Taman Fathahillah sudah bisa dilintasi oleh masyarakat begitu. Nah, pemandangan area pedestrian yang cukup luas terlihat begitu kita keluar dari pintu utara stasiun Jakarta Kota mengarah ke Museum Sejarah Jakarta. Kalau sebelumnya jalan ini bisa dilintasi oleh kendaraan bermotor, di mana hanya ada trotoar selebar 2 meter di sisi kanan kirinya, saat ini jalur tersebut sepenuhnya diubah menjadi jalur pedestrian yang hanya bisa dilintasi oleh para pejalan kaki begitu. Nah, beberapa masyarakat pun terlihat berjalan santai dan juga berfoto dengan nuansa pemandangan baru di kawasan Kota Tua ini. Adapun area ini dilengkapi dengan sejumlah fasilitas begitu Tribuners, misalnya seperti ada lampu penerang, kemudian juga ada tanaman yang terpasang di sisi kanan kiri serta di tengah jalur pedestrian tersebut, kemudian juga dilengkapi dengan guiding block untuk teman-teman disabilitas dan juga ada sejumlah tempat duduk bagi wisatawan atau masyarakat yang ingin beristirahat dan juga ada beberapa area seperti air mancur begitu. Dan memang suasana pada hari Kamis sore kemarin cukup ramai begitu Firda. Sebelumnya dapat kami sampaikan bahwa pengumuman rampungnya revitalisasi ini terlebih dahulu diumumkan oleh Pemprov DKI Jakarta melalui akun sosial media resminya atau di akun Instagram DKI Jakarta. Disebutkan bahwa revitalisasi kawasan Kota Tua sudah rampung bahkan sejak hari Rabu tanggal 23 Agustus 2022 begitu. Nah, adapun memang kawasan Kota Tua dengan wajah barunya ini dilengkapi dengan sejumlah fasilitas, diantaranya yang terbaru adalah kawasan Kota Tua sendiri ini terhubung dengan stasiun Jakarta Kota dan juga jalur stasiun Transjakarta begitu, sehingga masyarakat juga lebih dimudahkan untuk menggunakan kendaraan umum. Nah, selain itu juga selama proses revitalisasi ada juga pembangunan jalur stasiun MRT begitu. Nah, selain itu, Pemprov DKI Jakarta juga menerapkan kawasan rendah emisi di area tersebut seiring dengan rampungnya revitalisasi tersebut. Hal ini bertujuan untuk meningkatkan kualitas udara di sekitar lokasi serta mengurai kemacetan. Dengan demikian, kendaraan bermotor yang melintas di area kawasan Kota Tua kini juga dibatasi begitu Firda. Untuk diketahui Tribuners bahwa revitalisasi ini sebelumnya memang molor dari target yang ditentukan begitu, di mana proyek revitalisasi ini sebelumnya ditargetkan rampung pada Juli 2022. Namun pada tanggal 7 Agustus lalu sebelumnya Kepala Dinas Bina Marga DKI Jakarta Hari Nugroho menyebutkan bahwa penataan ini baru rampung sekitar 97%. Namun setelah diumumkan rampungnya revitalisasi ini oleh Pemprov DKI Jakarta sendiri, memang rencananya Gubernur DKI Jakarta Anies Baswedan sendiri akan meresmikan kawasan tersebut pada sore hari ini, tepatnya di hari Jumat tanggal 26 Agustus 2022. Begitu Firda, demikian.
Baik, terima kasih rekan Pebi dari Tribun Jakarta atas laporan Anda. Selamat bertugas kembali. Kita beralih ke informasi lainnya, Saudara. Dalam sidang kode etik dan profesi Polri atau KKIP, diputuskan Irjen Ferdisambo resmi dipecat dari Korps Bayangkara pada Jumat 26 Agustus. Pemecatan atau pemberhentian tidak dengan hormat atau PTDH ini diputuskan melalui sidang yang digelar di Gedung TNCC Mabes Polri, Jakarta Selatan sejak Kamis 25 Agustus. Sidang kode etik yang dipimpin oleh Kabag Intelkam Polri, Komjen Ahmad Dovir ini memutuskan Irjen Ferdisambo dipecat. Selain itu, dalam surat putusan, Irjen Ferdisambo dianggap melakukan pelanggaran sebuah perbuatan tercela. Sanksi yang dijatuhkan kepada Sambo yakni PTDH dan sanksi administratif berupa mendekam di tempat khusus selama 14 hari. Pelanggaran kode etik ini diketahui terkait dengan kasus pembunuhan berencana yang menewaskan Brigadir Nofriansyah Yosua Huta Barat alias Brigadir J. Selesai Doviri membacakan surat putusan hasil sidang kode etik, Irjen Ferry Sambo membacakan dan menyerahkan surat permohonan maaf. Dalam membacakan suratnya, Sambo minta maaf kepada sejawat anggota Polri atas perilaku pelanggaran kode etik yang dilakukannya. Pasalnya pelanggaran tersebut mengakibatkan jatuhnya kepercayaan masyarakat kepada institusi Polri. Sambo mengatakan surat tersebut sejatinya sudah dikirimkan kepada Kapolri Jenderal Polisi Sigit Prabowo. Namun surat permintaan maaf tersebut juga ia serahkan kepada Majelis Kode Etik. Selain minta maaf, Sambo juga mengakui penyesalannya atas apa yang diperbuat hingga menewaskan satu anak buahnya. Ia berjanji akan bertanggung jawab atas kasus yang telah membuat nama baik Polri tercoleng. Sebaliknya, Sambo juga berjanji akan mengikuti proses hukum dengan sebaik mungkin. Surat tersebut diketahui ditulis Sambo pada 22 Agustus 2022. Akan kami tampilkan Tribunnews keterangan dari Kabintelkam atau Ketua Sidang Komisi Kode Etik Komjen Pol Ahmad Doviri.
Kesatuan Yanma Polri. A. Terbukti secara sah dan meyakinkan melanggar 1. Pasal 13 ayat 1 Peraturan Pemerintah Nomor 1 Tahun 2003 tentang pemberhentian anggota Polri, junto Pasal 5 ayat 1 huruf B Perpol Nomor 7 Tahun 2022 tentang Kode Etik Profesi dan Komisi Kode Etik Polri yang berbunyi, anggota kepolisian negara Republik Indonesia dapat diberhentikan dengan tidak hormat dari Dinas Kepolisian Negara Republik Indonesia karena melanggar sumpah atau janji anggota Kepolisian Negara Republik Indonesia, sumpah atau janji jabatan, dan atau Kode Etik Profesi Kepolisian Negara Republik Indonesia, junto setiap pejabat Polri dalam etika kelembagaan wajib menjaga dan meningkatkan citra, soliditas, kredibilitas, reputasi, dan kehormatan Polri. 2. Pasal 13 ayat 1 Peraturan Pemerintah Nomor 1 Tahun 2003 tentang pemberhentian anggota Polri, junto Pasal 8 huruf B Perpol Nomor 7 Tahun 2022 tentang Kode Etik Profesi dan Komisi Kode Etik Polri yang berbunyi, anggota Kepolisian Negara Republik Indonesia dapat diberhentikan dengan tidak hormat dari Dinas Kepolisian Negara Republik Indonesia karena melanggar sumpah atau janji anggota Kepolisian Negara Republik Indonesia, sumpah atau janji jabatan, dan atau Kode Etik Profesi Kepolisian Negara Republik Indonesia, junto setiap pejabat Polri dalam etika kepribadian wajib bertanggung jawab, jujur, disiplin, bekerja sama, adil, peduli, responsif, tegas, dan humanis.
Irjen Ferry Sambo tersangka pembunuhan Brigadir Nofriansyah Yosua Huta Barat alias Brigadir J mengakui seluruh keterangan saksi yang dihadirkan dalam sidang Kode Etik Polri atau KKEP pada Jumat 26 Agustus. Sambo tak membantah ataupun menginterupsi keterangan saksi terkait tewasnya Brigadir J ini. Kadif Humas Polri Irjen Dede Prasetyo mengungkapkan FS alias Ferry Sambo tak menolak kesaksian yang diungkapkan oleh para saksi. Dedi mengatakan pengakuan tersebut menandakan bahwa dugaan pelanggaran etik yang dilakukan Sambo memang benar adanya. Pelanggaran tersebut diantaranya rekayasa kasus, penghilangan barang bukti, hingga upaya menghalangi proses penyidikan atau obstruction of justice. Dedi menerangkan sebanyak 15 saksi yang dihadirkan dalam sidang kode etik tersebut terbagi dalam 3 klaster. Klaster pertama terdiri dari 3 orang yang berkaitan dengan peristiwa penembakan Brigadir J di rumah dinas Irjen Ferry Sambo di Duren 3, Jakarta Selatan. Ketiga saksi tersebut yakni Baradae alias Richard Eliezer, kemudian Bribka Riki Rizal alias RR, dan KM alias Kuat Ma'ruf. Sementara klaster kedua yakni klaster terkait masalah perintangan penyidikan yang berjumlah 5 orang. Kelimanya yakni Brigadir Hendra Kurniawan, Brigjen Benny Ali, Komjen Agus Nurpatria, Kombes Susanto, dan Kombes Budi Herdi. Sedangkan klaster ketiga yakni berkaitan dengan obstruction of justice berupa perusakan atau penghilangan alat bukti CCTV. Saksi klaster ketiga yakni AKBP Rituan Soplanit, AKBP Arif Rahman, AKBP Arif Cahya, Kompol Cuk Putranto, dan AKP Rifaizal Samuel. Sebanyak 16 saksi yang dihadirkan dalam sidang kode etik tersebut terancam hukuman 7 tahun penjara. Akan kami tampilkan Tribuners keterangan lebih detail terkait hal ini dari Kadif Humas Polri, Irjen Dede Prasetyo dan juga Irjen Ferry Sambo, keterangannya seusai sidang.
Pak KEP, bagaimana kami sampaikan dalam proses persidangan dan mendengarkan putusan, kami mengakui semua perbuatan dan menyesali semua perbuatan yang kami telah lakukan terhadap institusi Polri. Namun, mohon izin sesuai dengan pasal 69 PP 7 2022, izinkan kami untuk mengajukan banding. Apapun keputusan banding, kami siap untuk melaksanakan.
Baik, jika akan mengajukan banding, maka pernyataan banding diajukan secara tertulis, lalu menganggap tidak setelah pembacaan putusan dan akan membanding dalam bentuk tertulis ke Sekretariat KPK dalam batas waktu 21 hari kerja setelah salinan putusan. Jadi, siap. Terima kasih.
Diproses sesuai dengan proses peradilan dengan ancaman hukuman 7 tahun. Ya, oleh karenanya tadi para saksi menyampaikan kepada sidang majelis apa yang dia alami dan apa yang dia lakukan. Ya, kemudian perlu saya sampaikan juga kepada rekan-rekan, tadi untuk saksi juga dibagi menjadi 3 klaster ya. Tadi saksi yang pertama 3 orang ya terkait menyangkut masalah klaster peristiwa penembakan Brigadir J di TKP Duren 3. Ya, tadi ada Baradae tidak bisa dihadirkan dalam persidangan ini karena yang bersangkutan statusnya adalah Justice Collaboration yang diamankan oleh LPSK. Kemudian yang hadir adalah Brigadir R dan Saudara KM. Kemudian klaster yang kedua adalah klaster terkait menyangkut masalah obstruction of justice, ya berupa ketidakprofesional di dalam olah TKP. Ya tadi ada 5 orang. Ya kemudian klaster yang ketiga adalah terkait juga menyangkut masalah obstruction of justice berupa merusak atau menghilangkan alat bukti CCTV. Itu semuanya sudah disampaikan ke anggota sidang Komisi Kode Etik dan yang bersangkutan 15 saksi ini 15 saksi ini mengakui apa yang dia lakukan. Dan juga ya, pelanggar Irjen FS juga sama, ya, tidak menolak apa yang disampaikan oleh kesaksian para saksi tersebut.
Perubahan ekspresi Irjen Ferry Sambo sebelum dan setelah putusan sidang kode etik Polri atau KKEP menjadi sorotan Jumat 26 Agustus. Saat hendak menjalani sidang kode etik, Sambo tampak tenang dan santai. Namun setelah putusan sidang yang menyatakan ia dipecat dari Korps Bayangkara dan dijatuhi sanksi PTDH, ekspresinya berubah menjadi murung. Diketahui ex-Kadif Propam Polri Irjen Ferry Sambo masuki ruang sidang kode etik Polri pada Kamis 25 Agustus sekira pukul 9:25 waktu Indonesia Barat. Ia mengenakan pakaian dinas harian atau PDH lengkap polos saat masuk ke ruang sidang di gedung TNCC Mabes Polri. Sambo tampak tenang dan tampak berjalan tanpa beban memasuki ruang sidang. Dari tayangan live yang disiarkan oleh YouTube Polri TV, Sambo tampak duduk santai menjalani sidang kode etik. Sidang tersebut diketahui dipimpin oleh Kabel Telkam Komjen Pol Ahmad Doviri. Sidang selesai digelar pada Jumat 26 Agustus dini hari. Hasil putusan sidang yakni Irjen Ferry Sambo dipecat dari Korps Bayangkara atau disanksi PTDH dan ditempatkan di tempat khusus selama 14 hari. Mendengar hasil putusan tersebut, ekspresi Irjen Ferry Sambo berubah. Ahli forensik emosi Handoko Gani menyebutkan Sambo tampak gugup dan tegang saat menjalani sidang kode etik Polri. Ketegangan yang dirasakan Ferry Sambo bisa terbaca melalui sejumlah gestur tubuh. Beberapa hal yang terlihat yakni posisi tangan Ferdy Sambo saat duduk. Menurut Handoko, tangan Sambo tampak memegang ujung kursi yang menandakan ia sedang tegang. Handoko menjelaskan seseorang terlihat tidak nyaman, tegang, ataupun cemas ketika memegang sesuatu benda, merebas-remas, kemudian memutar dan juga memainkannya. Selain tangan, Handoko juga melihat debar jantung Sambo tampak kencang. Handoko menjelaskan seseorang yang santai debar jantungnya tidak akan terlihat. Begitu pula sebaliknya, orang yang tegang akan terlihat berdebar jantungnya. Selain tangan dan debar jantung, Handoko juga menyoroti nafas pendek Sambo saat berbicara. Melalui video yang beredar, Handoko menilai Sambo tidak santai menghadapi sidang kode etik tersebut. Handoko mengatakan gestur duduk bersandar ke belakang menurutnya disebabkan oleh banyak faktor, diantaranya faktor kelelahan dan juga faktor psikologis. Sementara itu, pandangan Sambo yang tampak sedikit mendongak ke atas. Menurutnya karena terdakwa harus menjaga kontak dengan pemimpin sidang yang duduknya lebih tinggi. Handoko Gani mengatakan ada perbandingan yang signifikan saat Sambo memasuki ruang sidang dan saat menjalani sidang kode etik tersebut. Pada saat pertama kali muncul ke publik, Ferdi Sambo terlihat tegap dengan ayunan tangan yang tegas. Namun saat menjawab pertanyaan dari pemimpin sidang, Sambo tampak terbata-bata. Ex-Kadif Propam Polri Irjen Ferdi Sambo diberikan hak untuk melakukan banding atas putusan hasil sidang Komisi Kode Etik Polri atau KKEP Jumat 26 Agustus. Sambo diketahui dijatuhi hukuman pemberhentian tidak dengan hormat atau PTDH dan sanksi ditempatkan di tempat khusus selama 14 hari. Kadif Humas Polri Irjen Dedi Prasetyo mengatakan sesuai dengan pasal 69, Irjen Ferdi Sambo diberi kesempatan banding secara tertulis dalam waktu 3 hari kerja. Dedi mengatakan KKEP memiliki waktu selama 21 hari untuk menanggapi banding yang diajukan oleh Ferdi Sambo. Hasil putusan banding tersebut nantinya merupakan hasil final dan tidak ada perubahan lagi. Sambo diketahui menjalani sidang kode etik atas kasus tewasnya Brigadir Nofriansyah Yosua Huta Barat alias Brigadir J pada Kamis 25 Agustus. Sidang berlangsung hingga Jumat 26 Agustus dengan hasil Sambo dipecat dari institusi Polri. Dalam persidangan, Sambo mengatakan akan mengajukan banding terkait hasil putusan sidang tersebut. Ferdi Sambo juga mengakui kesalahannya terkait menjadi otak pembunuhan terhadap Brigadir Nofriansyah Yosua Huta Barat. Meski demikian, Sambo menyebut dirinya akan menerima hasil keputusan banding yang ia ajukan nanti. Akan kami tampilkan Tribunnews wawancara dari Kadif Humas Polri Irjen Pol Dedi Prasetyo.
Dan sesuai dengan perintah Bapak Kapolri, tim sus bekerja paralel dan secepatnya untuk segera dituntaskan kasus-kasus tersebut. Ya, demikian juga hari ini Inspektorat Khusus bersama Propam menggelar pelaksanaan sidang Komisi Kode Etik dengan pelanggar atas nama Irjen FS. Seperti rekan-rekan ketahui bersama, dari sidang maraton yang sudah dilaksanakan pada hari ini, pimpinan sidang telah memutuskan secara kolektif kolegial kepada pelanggar FS, ya tadi sudah disebutkan, perlu saya baca ulang kembali pada rekan-rekan bahwa sanksi yang dijatuhkan yang pertama adalah sanksi etika, yaitu perilaku pelanggar dinyatakan sebagai perbuatan tercela. Yang kedua, sanksi administratif berupa yang pertama, penempatan dalam tempat khusus selama 21 hari. Tentunya yang bersangkutan sudah menjalani patsus, ya tinggal nanti sisanya. Dan yang kedua adalah pemberhentian tidak dengan hormat atau PTDH sebagai anggota Polri. Ya, meskipun yang bersangkutan mengajukan banding, ini merupakan hak yang bersangkutan. Yang bersangkutan sesuai dengan pasal 69 dikasih kesempatan untuk menyampaikan banding secara tertulis 3 hari kerja.
Lembaga Perlindungan Saksi dan Korban atau LPSK membantah kabar penyekapan keluarga Baradae alias Richard Eliezer Jumat 26 Agustus. Juru bicara LPSK Ruli Novian memastikan tak ada penyekapan terhadap keluarga Baradae. Malah sebaliknya keluarga Baradae kini diamankan di tempat yang aman. Namun Ruli enggan menyebutkan di mana lokasi aman keluarga Baradae tersebut. Hal ini dirahasiakan agar keluarga Baradae tetap aman dari gangguan. Sementara itu, Ruli tak mengetahui dari mana informasi soal penyekapan yang disebutkan oleh pengacara Brigadir J. Kamarudin Simanjuntak. Hal yang sama juga diungkapkan oleh Ketua LPSK Hasrat Mojo Suroyo pada Kamis 25 Agustus. Hasto membenarkan bahwa orang tua Baradae diamankan di Makobrimob demi keamanan. Hal itu dilakukan untuk menghindari adanya ancaman-ancaman. Namun Hasto menegaskan keluarga Baradae bukan disekap, hanya ditempatkan di lokasi yang lebih aman. Hasto juga menyebut orang tua Baradae juga dalam kondisi baik. Sebelumnya pada Rabu 24 Agustus, Kamarudin menyatakan keluarga Baradae tengah disekap. Kamarudin mengungkapkan orang tua Baradae tinggal di Kecamatan Mapanget, Manado, Sulawesi Utara. Mereka kemudian tinggal di Makobrimob untuk saat ini. Ia mengatakan tak mengetahui alasan disekapnya keluarga Baradae tersebut di Makobrimob. Kamarudin pernah meminta kepada polisi untuk memeriksa orang tua Baradae terkait aliran dana. Menurutnya sejak saat itu orang tua Baradae yang sebelumnya tinggal di Manado pindah ke Makobrimob. Tribunnews, informasi tadi sekaligus menutup perjumpaan kita dalam live update sore hari ini. Jangan lupa saksikan terus live update di seluruh kanal YouTube dan Facebook Tribun Network. Saya Firananda, beserta kru yang bertugas pamit undur diri. Terima kasih dan sampai jumpa.
Jangan lupa like, subscribe, dan share ya.